Stay tuned and let's take a look at this Marvel Legends mini comic book wave Ultimate Miles Morales. Pow and welcome back to the channel, Dan Who Reviews. As always, my name is Dan W. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at It's Dan Who. And remember now you can hit that join button and become a channel member as well. Either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. Today we continue looking at the Marvel Legends mini comic book wave, and in front of us today we have the Ultimate Miles Morales, aka the Ultimate Spider-Man, and that's exactly what we get in mini comic form. We get Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man #1. And this is a new updated comic book Miles for our collection. The last decent Miles we got was sort of in the Gamerverse format, so the costume had a lot of texture. This one should be a little bit more streamlined to fit in with our comic displays. Of course, full comparison incoming in this video. I do like that we get the focus masked as well as an updated unmasked Miles Morales with a couple of hands. But of course, the mini comic is the gimmick for this wave. You've heard my opinion on that already. It's not for me in particular, but I'm not mad at it either. So yeah, I like the packaging as always. Marvel Legends just look good on a card back, comic book themed of course. On the back of the box we get a highlight of that comic as well as the other figures in this wave, and the write-up that reads, in Miles Morales the Ultimate Spider-Man #1, Miles must work to overcome the disappearance of his father and the aftermath of the battle with Galactus. So as I said, lots of comparisons incoming with our previous Marvel Legend Miles Moraleses. But let's get them open. Here we have Miles out of the packaging with all of his accessories on the table. You get a set of grabbing hands, a set of swipping hands, and then just one lonely wall crawling hand. So no fisted hands with this Miles. You get the unmasked head on the figure from the packaging, and then you get the masked head with those more serious, focused eyes, which I don't mind at all. And then of course, the comic book as well. So we're gonna look at all of that. But let me first just swap the head because I wanna start off this video with a comparison, because I actually think this is the smallest Miles Morales in our Marvel Legends collection. And my assumptions were true. This new Miles is in fact the smallest Marvel Legend Miles that I have in my collection at least. If we're missing any, let me know, but this is what I've got. We've got the Space Venom Build-A-Figure version, the recent Gamerverse version, and then the 10th anniversary Miles that came on the modern card back. But yes, this new mini comic wave Miles is absolutely the smallest we have, even smaller than that original release on that younger teen book. So let me move these just to the side a little bit so I can get the tape measure in so you can see for yourself how tall he actually is. So there's the tape measure. So you can see to the top of his head, he's about 14 centimeters and about 5.5 inches in height. So I actually don't mind that for a Miles, because in my mind he is younger than Peter, he should be shorter than Peter, but standing next to the Gamerverse version there, he does look really small. But I do think for comic Miles, that is absolutely more accurate. So we will do some more comparisons, but let me just move them out the way first. And we'll take a closer look at this one first, and we'll do plenty of head swaps and all that, don't you worry. But first, let's take a closer look. Taking a closer look at the mask, as always with Legends, there are different opinions out there. Some people like these smaller lenses, other people would have preferred the wide eyes. I don't mind these, they're a little bit more battle ready, a little bit more focused for Miles in comparison to other Marvel Legend expressions we've got, but I understand it would have been nice to get a set of wider lenses packed in there as well, just to give you display options. But I don't mind this at all, and I did manage to find a few comic panels of reference to show you Miles when he's a bit more focused, ready for battle. So I don't mind it. A little bit of an angry Miles. Other than that, the lines on there are nice and clean, very thin. They are thin red lines, and with spiderweb lines, it's very easy to get bad QC, but there is no issues from what I can see spinning it all the way around. The eyes, of course, are sculpted on top of the mask as well. And is it a dumb bad or a disc and hinge? It's a disc and hinge, so that's him looking all the way up. And that is him burying the chin, which isn't bad at all. I'm not mad at that. I know some people prefer the dumbbell, but that doesn't bother me. Looking at the uniform, it is what we have come to expect from Miles. It is the red web lines on top of the black with the red V down on the chest. So there's your front look. there is the back. I like how they've kept the spider legs tucked in there on the back so they don't sort of linger over onto the butterfly, but the red line does. So as you start moving that back, the red line will continue, and that is the front and back as well. If you pull the butterfly and take advantage of them, that red line does follow through. And again, he's on a ball joint up at the top, as well as the crunch at the waist. So your swivel is going to be there at the diaphragm instead of at the waist, and then you just get a waist crunch. But he does go forward pretty far, not mad at that at all, and then backwards, decent as well. So for this smaller book, I don't mind that at all. I like how smooth and sort of clean he is in comparison to, let's say, the Gamerverse, who had all of this sort of texturing throughout it and a lot more sculpted detail. All of this web line is just painted on there, which I don't mind. I know some people might have preferred the spider to be sculpted, but I don't mind that at all. It does look like a nice clean comic Miles. There's a little bit of sculpt work for the material at the top of the thighs, but other than that, the legs are smooth and just completely black all the way down. Is that a boot swivel? Yes, it is. There is a boot swivel hidden there at the bottom. Ankle pivot rocker, as you've come to expect. Double jointed, pinless knees, double jointed, pinless elbows. We love to see it. I do appreciate that sort of clean Marvel Legends aesthetic we are becoming accustomed to. That's why when we see pins on our recent reveals, we get a little bit frustrated because we know how much better they look and perform with these pinless joints. So yeah, Miles looks good. So yeah, no complaints from me here. This is a very solid looking comic book Miles, and I really like the expression. In regards to hands, we get this straight out the box. So you get one swipping hand and one wall crawling hand. But unfortunately, you do not get a set of wall crawling. You do, however, get a set of swips. So you do get a set of swipping hands, no problem. You also get a set of... Wait, I am mistaken. I assumed we had a set of gripping hands, but on closer inspection, you do actually get one fist. So you get one fisted hand and one grabby hand. So apart from a full set of swipping hands, you get one grabby, one fist, and one wall crawling hand. So unfortunately not sets of any of these expressions, but at least you have a few different display options. So yeah, one fist, one grabby hand, and that is there because he needs to hold his comic. And there's our closer look at the mini comic, Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man #1. Now again, I've shared my opinion on these mini comics, not for me, but to be positive, they are very nicely printed. The detail of these mini comics is really well done for the scale. You can absolutely read all the text on these tiny comics, very nice and clear. So yeah, they are a good quality, but they are unfortunately just a piece of plastic. They do not open up. It is just a piece of plastic, and on the back, no print. This one doesn't even have the Hasbro logo. It just has the Marvel Legends logo. So it looks like a Marvel Legends clipboard the other way around. But again, it's just a little gimmick where Miles can hold the comic for display. And just for scale, here we have Miles holding his comic proudly. So let's go back and take a closer look at the unmasked Miles Morales head sculpt. Looks decent with the digital face printing tech. It's a very stoic sort of neutral expression, but I don't mind that at all. And again, they're doing a great job with the digital face printing tech. Very clean hairline as well. And yeah, this is probably the best comic Miles head sculpt we have. But we have had some other ones as well I'll look at in a moment. But yeah, this is the one we get with this one. Looking very nice all the way around. So yeah, a solid looking comic Miles Morales head sculpt. I do wish with Spider-Man characters, if they come with an unmasked head, we should get like a mask accessory that he can hold, just like we got with the VHS Spider-Man recently, because it just looks better on display when you've got an unmasked Spider-Man actually with his mask in hand. But yeah, we haven't got one for Miles just yet. To be fair to Hasbro, every single time we have gotten Miles in this particular look, the Marvel Legend has come accompanied with an unmasked head sculpt as well. And all of these were decent for the time of release as well. They're all a decent looking Miles for sure. I'll zoom in. You can let me know in the comments below which do you think is the best Marvel Legends unmasked Miles Morales head sculpt. I think I'm leaning towards this new mini comics wave version, but I don't dislike the other two. The other two are fine. If you're curious, will those fit on this new body? Let's give it a try. Here we have the Gamerverse head on this body. It pops onto the peg, no problem at all. Proportionally, maybe it might be a little bit too big for this slender body, but it does work. And for those curious, the old head sculpt we got back in 2016, it's a little bit dated now anyway. I do think the digital face printing tech just looks so much better. But yeah, unfortunately, this head sculpt doesn't fit on the peg. That unfortunately also means that the mast head that came with that old Space Venom Build-A-Figure Wave version does not fit on this body, because we wanted to try and get the wider lenses. But yeah, unfortunately, the peg is too big for the hole, so unless you mod that or heat that up too much and warp it, it's not going to work. So let's try the Gamerverse head though. That is here, and that feels like it pops on, but yeah, that's very loose. Yeah, too loose to be honest. But also it's massively textured in comparison to this mini comics version, as the head has the sculpted web lines and it also has texture on the black uniform, which is a big contrast compared to the smoothness of the comic one. So yeah, unfortunately it doesn't look like any of these previous wide eyes head sculpts are going to work on this new body. So it looks like the two head sculpts that come packed with this figure are your best options for this body, and there isn't much swapping options with previous versions of Miles. I actually don't mind the smaller lenses with the eyes, but I understand people might have wanted the bigger ones. But to be honest, this is probably the better unmasked Miles Morales head for a comic version as well anyway. So I appreciate people would have also liked that extra head with the wider eyes, but they were trying something different. Something else I was encouraged to try swapping on this new body, just to give you more display options, were the sort of Venom-y electrical effects that we got with the Gamerverse version, as that is a character asset of Miles we don't really have representation of for a true comic version. So let's try these electrical hands on the new Miles. And you know what? They do pop onto this body, but I think proportionately the hands may be a little bit too big for this new comic body. But maybe you can pretend that his hands swell up when he's demonstrating this effect or something. So yeah, they will pop on there if you were curious about using those effect pieces from the Gamerverse version. But you will have to play around with poses so they proportionally don't just look like massive hands. But it's nice to know what options we have with what we currently have in our collection. Now, before I forget, let me just go back to the hips for a second, because I forgot how obsessed people were with Spider-Man's crotch, because a lot of comments in my Maximum series review were all about the drop-down hips. So I just wanted to show you that this Miles also has some decent drop-down hips. So there you go. They will drop down a little bit and allow for some really solid range. Like again, his foot can go past his head. So yeah, this Spider-Man, you'll be able to get into some very nice poses. This isn't a nice pose. This is, go and watch Jay Hernandez. He knows how to pose Spider-Man figures. I just know how to sit them on my shelf. But no, it's, again, these type of characters are actually easy to get in fun poses for even someone like me, or just a novice. But yeah, some great articulation on this Miles. So let's just have one last look at all three versions of Miles on the table before we move on. So all of these are in the same uniform, but technically this one is a representation of the Gamerverse, and it does have a lot more texturing and sculpted detail, which you don't really see in the comics. These two are comic Miles, and this new one is absolutely an update. This old one is a decade old now. This came out in the 2016 Space Venom Wave. The articulation isn't as good. He's got the pins. He's a little outdated. So yes, this new one for me is an absolute upgrade compared to this previous version. So let's move him out the equation. So I guess it's between these two for the best version of Miles Morales within your collection. Now, of course, it's your display. You create your own rules. But for me personally, I don't display Gamerverse figures in my comic displays. So that automatically excludes this version. Also, he's just a little bit too tall for my mind's eye of Miles. So I definitely think this is your better option for a comic representation of Miles. For me personally, of course, you can have your own preference, but if we take a closer look at these two, you can see that the texture and the sculpt work is obviously more impressive on the Gamerverse, but for me, I just prefer the cleaner look for the comic shelf. However, it's also very important how he looks compared to Spider-Man. So let's have a look, shall we? So here we have Miles Morales compared to the very recent Maximum Series Spider-Man. And I think these two look great together. I genuinely think these are the best comic representations of these characters for our Marvel Legends collection. Of course, I'm not talking about other toy lines. I'm not here to argue that. Just for my Marvel Legends collection, at least, these are my main comic representations of these characters, absolutely. But if you want to see some others, let's bring in the Renew Your Vows. So there is Renew Your Vows. Let me twist his head a little bit. So there's Miles and Renew Your Vows. Again, it works absolutely fine. Here we have the 60th anniversary, or Amazing Fantasy. Some people get mad when I call it the 60th anniversary. But yeah, Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. So yeah, Miles definitely has an option for plenty of Spider-Man on the shelf. Now, I hope you guys appreciate the dedication to the craft, as it just took me a good while digging through my totes to look for this Ultimate Green Goblin, as this was the first big bad he fought within this comic run. So not in this particular issue, they teased it of course, but it wasn't until like issue 3 that he actually fought this version of Green Goblin, and then Spider-Man came to his aid. So yeah, this is technically Miles's first big bad from this issue. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but this is from 2014. This was from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie. That was the Build-A-Figure for that, way back when. So yeah, really outdated. It's not even in the display anymore, but I knew I still had it in the totes. And it does look pretty good next to Miles because, again, it's just familiar, isn't it? So, and the scale works really well too. So yeah, if you still have this massive Ultimate Green Goblin somewhere, then it will work for some pictures with this Miles, absolutely. Here we have the retro carded Venom and Carnage, and because Miles is so small, he just makes these regular villains look really imposing. Here we have Mysterio and Kraven. Back to Spider-Man, we've got Pizza Spider-Man and Spider-Punk. You can't talk about Miles without bringing up the Spider-Verse, so here we have a couple from that original wave. We've got Peter B. Parker and Miles himself. Oh, and Spider-Ham. For a couple of females, we've got Black Widow and Spider-Woman. Here we have the recent Secret Wars Captain America and Iron Man. And I've tried to dim my lights a little bit so Rom just doesn't disappear into the background. But here we have the only other figure in this wave I have reviewed so far. It is, of course, Rom the Space Knight, proudly holding his comic book with Miles Morales. So that's what they're going to look like on the display so far. Is anybody planning on doing this, by the way? And as always, let's wrap up with some of the Who crew. We have Frogman and Tigra. But last and never least, here we have Captain Britain and Hal Fire Hank. So, final thoughts on this Marvel Legends mini comic book wave, Miles Morales. I actually really like this and think this is a massive comic book upgrade for our display. I know some people may have preferred the wider lenses. It would have been nice to get that option, but otherwise I do like this figure, and I do like the head sculpt as well. I like both head sculpts. This is going to be the best comic book representation of Miles for your collection, at least from my perspective. I understand some people may prefer the added texture and sculpt work on the Gamerverse version, but for me, I just can't merge the lines on a display. That's just something I never do. But if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine, but I can't do it. I cannot do it. Also, that Miles is a little bit taller, and I prefer a shorter Miles. I like it when Miles is sort of like Peter's apprentice, sort of Peter's sidekick. I know he's not technically, but that's the sort of vibe they give for sure. And yeah, I just like this cleaner look, and it's got some great articulation for this smaller book as well. So yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I really like this Miles. It wasn't one I was excited to get in this wave. I just seen it as an inevitable upgrade for a character, but getting it in hand, I've had some fun posing it. So you let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this one you are looking forward to? Is it an upgrade you're going to make happen? Always curious to hear your thoughts. But if you like Marvel Legends, you are in the right place. Check out the videos tab, find the playlist, but most importantly, please hit that subscribe button, hit all on the notification bell, don't miss out on the video, and please hit that join button, become a channel member if you show some love, or join the members club. Much appreciated, honestly. Join the channel and get to be on the channel. Be a part of the channel you're supporting, honestly. I appreciate you. Join me on a live stream. Follow me on Instagram at itsdanwho. I'm on X at Dan Who Reviews, and I will of course see you on the next one.